This is Act and Analyze with Maggie and Tyler. We're two best friends.
I'm an actress.
And I'm a therapist.
In Act and Analyze, you will hear us discuss all things within media and our daily lives while relating it to our lovely guests.
We want to have fun, but also learn along the way.
Everywhere around us is media. We just want to know what type of media helps you, or infuriates you, or makes you feel good.
We want to grow with you and leave you all feeling better than how we found you.
Welcome to Act and Analyze.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Act and Analyze with Maggie and Tyler.
Yes, we are here on the Google Meet platform, looking cute as ever.
Yes.
And we have a very, very special guest.
Mhm.
Tyler met him at Sacred Heart.
Yes.
Can you tell me about your guest today?
Yeah, I'll talk. Yeah, so our guest today is Rob Johnson, who I met at Sacred Heart, which we talk about in the beginning of the episode when he's on. But I'll never forget when we met. I mean, I remember he was working in the gym when I was on weightlifting. So like but he's older than me. I think he was a senior when I was a freshman, or even in grad school when I was a freshman. But once he became a employee at Sacred Heart and was running the Multicultural Center, I remember I was walking, had a mask on. It was like COVID times, walking down the hall, and I heard someone scream my name from the Multicultural Center, and I was just walking past it, and it was Rob, and he introduced himself to me, and just saw that I want to be a part of the change and be part of the efforts to make campus a safer place for everyone, and wanted to be part of the conversation. So he brought me in, introduced himself, and we connected. And I did my work study was in the Multicultural Center. I was part of the Multicultural Council. I was a part of I brought a lot of DEI efforts into my sorority. I was very, very involved in that way on campus, and I owe so much to Rob, genuinely. Thank you, Rob, so much, because he wrote letters of recommendation for me for grad school. I feel like he really was a part of motivating me to be a therapist and to go take that journey. And I just owe so much to him. So thank you, Rob. You're the best.
Yeah.
And so I'm very excited to chat with him.
I'm so excited that I get to meet him finally, because I have been hearing about him. I remember hearing about him, just you always working with him, and the conversations that you would have, and just I learned from Rob by just via Tyler. So thank you, Rob.
Yeah, you're the best.
So what has our week looked like? What are our peach and pit of this week? Slash the past 2 weeks, because we had to take last week off because we were in our bag.
Yeah. Okay, so my peach this week was seeing Zachariah Porter and Jonathan from Camp Counselor podcast, Zachariah's show in Philly with Maggie and our friend Katie, and it was so funny. It was so fun. It was such a good time. We were front and center, and Katie made us shirts, and if you watch Camp Counselors, you'll get it, but she made us brat green shirts. It was brat themed shirts with different phrases they say on the show. So mine said "Nunu Nana," Maggie said "Gigi," and Katie said "Sandwich." And we were front and center. Literally, we could see them clear as day. It was so good.
In the selfie that they took, you literally could see the three of us.
Yeah, we're right there. So that was definitely my peach.
Definitely.
It was so much fun. And yeah, what was your
Mhm.
peach?
Mine was probably when we saw Sammy Ray and the Friends. And it was really just a good time to listen to inspirational music. She has a lot of like music about self-love. And she also did play a really great cover of 10th Avenue Freeze Out.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think it was like a great time to just be off my phone, away from social media, and just listen to a really inspirational artist. So that was really fun. And doing it with you and all my ladies.
Yes. Yes. There's something in my hair.
Mhm.
A fuzz. But yeah, how about pet? Um,
I'm sure ours is the same.
mhm.
It's definitely the election. It's definitely Donald Trump getting into office. It's been really, I've been feeling like going through the stages of grief, which is completely normal for everyone to do. I think it was shocking, sad, angry, everything. And I'm still in that process of processing it and worried, and I think it's definitely been hard to focus, but my therapist said just you have to make these days as easy as possible as you grieve. And then, I'm in a very like privileged position, where I'm in a state that, is like has like abortion like bans protected right now. But like I just know that like I will need, like, I'm gonna do the work, and it's not the end. The fight is not over. So I have to know that. And but right now, definitely still in a mourning period, definitely still grieving, definitely still in pain.
Yeah, I agree with that, and that's definitely my pit as well. And yeah, it's like everyone needs to feel their emotions fully and process this. And it was devastating. I think all of us were rooting and wanting our first woman president, our first Black woman president, our first Indian woman president, and that was taken from us. And it's really devastating. And it's okay to feel how you need to right now. But, lean on community, lean on each other, lean on your safe people. If there's people in your life who voted against you and your rights, like it's okay to take space from those people right now, or however long you need to. And it's deeper than politics. So don't let anyone gaslight you into thinking like you're wrong for how you are moving about this devastating news. So I'm here, and lean on your loved ones who are safe people, and speak to your therapist. Make sure your therapist is culturally competent and safe to talk about these things with if you do see one. And just know that we are a space as well if you need one.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's that. Let's get into this episode with Rob. And that's it.
Yeah.
Hi, Rob.
Hi, Rob.
Hello, ladies. How's everything been?
Everything is good. We're happy to be here with you.
Yeah, we're so excited. Can you tell me a little bit about how you and Tyler know each other, how you guys met?
Yes. So it's funny. I was just talking to one of the new interfaith chaplains and telling him about you, Tyler. So basically, Tyler is what I like to call an MCOG, right? So multicultural OG. Now, when we were first starting out in 2020, it was very difficult to attract students that were currently a part of like the Sacred Heart community to what we were doing. So most of our students were obviously underclassmen, freshmen, sophomores. Other students didn't really trust the MC just yet because from their perspective in their lens, it was like this is like a performative action by the institution just to say that they're doing something. but I worked tirelessly just on my own to let students know the type of person that I am first, and that nothing I touch is inauthentic or performative. Like if I'm here to change your life and do something positive in your life, that's all I'm here to do. And although Tyler was only with us for what, like a year, like a short period of time, she made a huge impact in getting other students to see that the space was okay for them to come and be a part of, and learn and connect and commune with one another regarding cultural immersion, cultural exchange, cultural competency, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and social justice. Right, the things that at that time were super, super prevalent. Like people were talking about it. All the energy, all the attention was focused on ways to close the gap in terms of equity, in the college experience for underrepresented students. And it was always it was a breath of fresh air to even have you there, because it was initially, it was just difficult, right? It was difficult.
Mhm.
COVID, we were middle of COVID, like it was crazy, right? But we still pulled it off in terms of developing a solid community for students. And we did a lot of partnered work. Like we were on like dozens of Zooms. I didn't have a budget the first year, so it was like everything we was doing, it was all on Zoom.
Oh, wow.
It was hard to bring in like speakers and guests, because that's what people were looking for at the time. But it's always good to have students who are willing to join you in on the fight to ensure that other students have voices, because like ultimately peers don't change by seeing role models all the time, or people in administration modeling for them how they should act or what they should be doing. Right, when their peers do it, it has a deeper impact. Right, it there's something different about when someone who is in college with you shows you that talking about social justice is important, right? Like talking about social issues and the climate of our country, and how inequities negatively impact certain groups more than others. When you see a peer doing it, it makes it easier to have those conversations versus having, an administrator do it. So I appreciate you. I appreciate Grace, Shanoa, all of those students, like everybody that like they bought in early, and now look at what I'm sure you see all the stuff that we put out.
I
Yeah,
do. I love it.
and if it wasn't for you, Leela, like everybody that was there in the beginning, and that bought in and contributed in their own way, whether it was in a small way or a big way, I genuinely appreciate it, because we wouldn't be able to have the momentum and the steam that we still have behind the work that we do on campus. So yeah, that's how I know Tyler. I'm sorry, that was long-winded, but
No, not at all. Not at all. I'm curious of like how you got to this position working at the Multicultural Center at Sacred Heart. What are your passions? Yeah. How did you get to be Rob?
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, so the work that I do for me personally is very like serendipitous, like very full circle. I was doing this as an undergrad, right? I was an undergraduate student at Sacred Heart. We didn't have an office for diversity. We didn't have a multicultural center. We didn't have spaces where students could have conversations about, at least for me particularly, what it's like to be a Black student on campus, right? There weren't those intentional spaces. We didn't have a chief diversity inclusion officer. Like equity, inclusion, DEI in general was not being mentioned on our campus. And I found that to be quite alarming even as a student, right? And the reason why is because beyond being a student athlete, I was just self-aware about the conditions of, at that time, what Black people were going through in our country. And for me as a student, it was very difficult to my freshman year watch George Zimmerman be acquitted for Trayvon Martin's murder. It was very difficult to see visually on one of these Eric Garner get checked out by NYPD. it was difficult to see Mike Brown and Philando Castile and Sandra Bland, and the list goes on and on and on and on, and no one say anything. I think it might have been different if somebody said something and acknowledged it, but at that time on our campus, nobody even said anything. And for me as a 20-year-old, 21-year-old, it was not only was it disappointing and disheartening, but at the time, you know, when you're young, your emotions are the highest. Like you don't have as much emotional intelligence. I was just frustrated. I was infuriated, I'll be honest, right? So I took it upon myself through my fraternal organization, Iota Phi Theta Fraternity Incorporated, to host diversity workshops on campus, to hold those spaces myself, right? And it was obviously there was resistance. It wasn't well received. We didn't have high attendance. Like I wasn't expecting any of that, but I was just holding the space because I knew for me, I needed it. So somebody else definitely needs it too, right? So we talked about police brutality. We talked about systemic racism. We talked about all of these issues that exist in our society, and how they affect us here as students. And lo and behold, almost 10 years later, I was doing the exact same thing, but on a higher level, right? So that's what I mean, how life is extremely full circle, and like life will always reveal to you what you're supposed to be doing. And you just have to be patient enough and watch out for the opportunity to fall right in your lap. Like this quite literally fell right in my lap. So yeah, that was my experience as an undergrad. And it was through those moments, right? Like I remember my senior year, like every year there was a pivotal moment of a social justice or, you know, discrimination, bias issue that took place, that I was like, how is this still happening? Like, or why are these things still taking place? One particular incident that happened at another local campus that actually like made national news. We held the space again for not just students at Sacred Heart, but students at Fairfield University, where they experienced, you know, a very unfortunate incident where a quote unquote, and you can look this up, a ghetto party was thrown, where of course no students of color were invited, and you know the students that did go dressed up as stereotypical, you know, stereotypical Hispanic people, Black people, Indian people, whatever, as fun, and they didn't see the problem in that, right? And that's why this work is so important, right? That's why what I do is so important, to make people aware of being culturally insensitive, right? To make people aware of just the various cultural nuances that exist amongst all of our, not just from a racial and ethnic perspective, but also from like a, you know, a class perspective, like a socioeconomic perspective, a faith-based lens, a ability lens, right? Like the scope of diversity is so much larger than just racial conversations. Oh, for sure, we're going to cover racial conversations because we live in a country founded on systemic racist principles, right? But there are other, there are gender-based systemic principles that we need to address as well. There are ableism, like all of these different things that we don't create space to always talk about. So yeah, those moments led up to 2020 when, of course, we saw the murder of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, all within like a 6-week span, I think, or 2-month span. I can't remember. And I think our students were, you know, fed up again, just like how I was, right? They were seeing these things happen.
Yeah.
And they wanted change on our campus, and they advocated for that. The way I advocated for it was holding spaces. What they advocated for was, no, we need our own space, like a dedicated, our own space. And I always applaud them for that, because like I wasn't even at that level to I just was like, all right, let me hold this space amongst us as students. They actually fought for a physical space to be created. So I always appreciate them for that. And yeah, that was the moment when the opportunity arose, and I've been the inaugural, director of the space ever since. And it's been good. I mean, you know, it fulfills me to do the work that I do. Like I don't hate coming to work. Like I know I know
Yeah.
there's some people that like they dread going to work on Mondays. Like, no, like I love what I beyond um beyond diversity education, beyond cultural competencies, and all of these social principle like social discussions that we have to have. I love having the opportunity to develop students as humans, as people,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
talk about like character, because I feel like that's the reason why we have all of these issues. People are avoiding personal development and character a, a um a necessity. Like you have to have that to be successful, in my opinion. You know, I'm sure.
Yes.
Well,
No.
I mean, some people can make it and be successful without character, but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but my point is like if you want longevity in terms of success, I think being a character-based person and understanding like your core beliefs and values and that like making sure that all of these things are in alignment so that you can be successful. Like I love doing that. Like that's why I come. So yeah.
Yeah, and it's it is such like a vulnerable thing, really figuring out your truth and who you are and your authentic self. And you definitely provide a space for students to and people to explore that and to show up, you know, mask off and as
Yeah.
themselves and to just get deep and get real. And I think that there is so much superficial you know, spaces, especially on college
Mhm.
campuses. People just want to fit in. Like that's all like
Mhm.
teenagers and like early adulthood people, they just want to fit in. And like the multicultural center is such a space to just be.
Yeah.
And yeah, you definitely provide such a warm, welcoming, open space to everyone who cross paths with you. So, with that said, because you are always providing space for others, how do you take care of you outside
Uh,
of this?
that's funny. I do take. So I don't think so. I'm very different. Like I feel like I have like a unlimited battery when it comes to certain like no, I do like you know like there was a time you know those first 2 years were very I didn't know how difficult they were until I looked back on them and I was
Mhm.
like, damn, I burnt myself out getting this thing
No,
up
you
off the
were
ground.
nonstop. You were
So
nonstop.
but the thing is like I didn't like it didn't negatively affect me because like for me, I'm a very ambitious, goal-oriented person. Like I've always been that way. So it doesn't matter if I'm quote unquote burnt out. Like I'm gonna get the job done and then I'll figure out the rest later. Now I know that's not a great way to do things, and we talk about self-care very often in society now. We talk about taking meaningful breaks and this, that, and the third. And those things are extremely important. But when you have high goals, you have to know the depth of what it is going to take to get to where you want to be and be ready, willing, and prepared to go after that. Um, so sometimes there aren't going to be those like there are periods of the year where like I know I'm not getting a break. Like it's a part of the nature of my work, right? So in
Mhm.
understanding that, if I know that prior to going in, I have
Mhm.
a different mentality and I have a different reserve. And then what drives me is like being present for students no matter what, right?
Yeah.
I think they're my unlimited battery, right? Like they're the reason why I have that constant, like I'm always fueled up because I always think to myself, if they don't get support from me or anyone else in my office, who are they going to get it from? Right. Like if they don't feel, comfortable on campus for whatever reason, whether it's based on their identity or some circumstances at home, like they still need a person, right? They still need someone. So like I do refuel, I do recharge, but
Mhm.
I think my recharge is very different from the average person. Like my recharge is before I even get to work, I have everybody thinks on campus I'm very extroverted. I'm not. I'm the most introverted person of all time. Like in my social, I always tell people like if I had to like describe my social battery, I always say it's like one of those Family Dollar social like batteries. Like it's not it's very low. Like I don't go out on the weekends. Like I don't like go and do those types of things. Um so yeah, I mean I when I have my quality solitude, like I don't isolate myself. I always explain to people that's very different. Like when you isolate yourself, it's because you don't want to be bothered with people, right? Because you don't want to experience harm, or you don't want the pressure and the weight of meeting their expectations.
Mm-hmm.
I that's different. I have like solitude and alone time with myself so that I can process and think about how I'm going to be an effective person when I
Mm-hmm.
show up at later in the day, right? And that's my first thing in the morning. Like, you know, when I get a chance to go, you know, go to the gym, go swim, do my thing, sauna, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I think I do like my weekends now, even, you know, I'm back in school now. If my fiance's at work, like I'm solo. Like I like the reason why I'm saying this,
Congratulations, by the way,
oh,
on your
thank you.
engagement.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Big married husband. You know what I'm saying? Big, you know.
Yes.
I'm excited for that. That's next summer. But yeah, like being with my fiance too. So like, you know, because you get I don't get lonely, but like, you know, you need some time to connect with someone, and I'd rather it be my someone, which is my fiance. So we get
Mm-hmm.
our quality on the weekends when she's not at work. Um, and I think having the separation between your personal life, your professional life, and then your recreational interests or whatever they might be. Like I'm a very simple person. Like I don't need to be doing a lot. Like you know, if
Mm-hmm.
I'm not at work, I'm at the gym or I'm with my fiance. Like I don't. I think it varies per person. Some people need that community too. Like some people need to be around other people. And I've been explaining to students, like, yes, that's extremely important. You need community, but you also need to be okay with being alone with yourself and having the confidence. Like, I love going, I can go to the movies by myself and I can go out
Mm-hmm.
to eat by myself and I
Yep.
will have a ball. Like, I have a ball.
Mhm.
So I do these things by myself, and that's my recharge, and I've always been that way. And I think it's necessary for everyone to have some capacity of doing that. Because if you can't be alone with your own thoughts and yourself, like, and you are constantly, like, whether it be mentally or emotionally dependent on that community, I always say to myself, well, what if that community dissolves one day, right? Like, what if people's circumstances change? What if my circumstances change? I don't want to be so dependent on them that I can't be self-sufficient and be
Mm-hmm.
my best self and be
Yeah.
alone with myself and operate on my own if I truly needed to without them. So it's a balance of the two.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's how I recharge. I think that everybody's different, but that's me. That's just how I work. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Is there any like pieces of media that you watch or read or look at
Mhm,
to in any way? What's your kind
mhm.
of podcast? Yeah. What do
Yeah.
you um what are you listening, watching?
Yeah, so I listened to this podcast by Dr. Eric Thomas called The Secret to Success podcast. I listened to that. I've been listening to that on a weekly basis for probably since like 2017, 2018.
I
Uh
remember showing us them.
yeah, I
Our
still
wisdom
show it.
is, yeah.
I still podcast because they're talking about personal development. Again, I'm simple. I don't need a million podcasts. I'd
Mhm.
rather like it's all about quality for me. So I'll listen to that on a weekly basis. You know, and then I also listen to these gentlemen who basically run like a financial literacy podcast, but they intertwine aspects of like character into how saving money, being disciplined are directly attached to your financial success, and that's called Earn Your Leisure. They talk about stocks, they talk about, but it again, the reason why I like their platform is because they talk about how aspects of your character attributes are directly connected to your financial stability. So those are my two go-tos on a weekly basis. When I find another, like, you know, it's always great. I've tried a few others. I just can't be as consistent with them. But I those to kind of keep me honest and keep me like consistent. I think one other thing that I like to do is like once a year, I will watch, at least since COVID, I should say, I'll rewatch The Last Dance, the documentary, the Michael Jordan documentary.
Mhm.
And I watch it because like when you see the pitfalls of the great success, like, you know, Tom Brady got divorced, right? Fortunately, like Kobe passed away. Michael Jordan had, he had the whole gambling issue, but I watched those things to motivate me to take lessons from each of their success in that realm and see if it's applicable in my life. And if it's not applicable right now, when will it be applicable, right? And those things just kind of keep me going on a I guess a weekly and monthly basis. I try not to consume too much media, to be honest with you, nowadays, because there's way too much. One, it's oversaturated right now.
Yeah.
And two, I think you mentioned, yes, it's a lot of it is superficial. The quality's not there. Like people are like, I don't like hearing or watching podcasts that talk about like gender wars and all. Like that's not my thing. That's all entertainment. That's and I don't listen to podcasts for entertainment. I listen to them for like value, right? Like
Yeah.
what are they talking about intellectually that is going to change my way of thinking and how I can apply it to my life, right? And arguing about who's paying what bills is not my thing, so I'm good on that. But those are my go-tos. So
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. How would you say mental health plays a role within your job, within your personal life?
Yeah, mental health plays a huge role because a lot of the students that I support and like even myself when I was a student, when you come from a historically excluded background or experience, whether it be from a socioeconomic perspective, race, ethnicity, you have psychological issues connected to like imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
You might think you're crazy because you don't practice groupthink like everyone else. So you're the odd one, especially like at certain schools, right? So it's like the same things that students go through now, I was going through for sure in my own way back in 2014, 15, 16, right? So I make it an effort to be that kind of sounding board to keep them in line with having the emotional intelligence sometimes not to negatively react to a microaggression, right? Like that takes high level of emotional skill to not like lash out on somebody when they say something crazy like, oh, you're pretty for a black girl, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, why would you even think to say that? Like that students experience those things, right? And that weighs on your emotional health, right? I mean your mental and emotional health. So that is how mental health is connected to what I do, and being able to create those spaces where students have these common issues that happen to them or things that happen to them. When you can connect with someone else that is going through that similar issue, one, you're not insane, like you weren't overthinking. Two, you then can commune with one another to understand how to address those things so that it doesn't start to weigh on your mental health, right? Because when you're going through college as a first generation student, for instance, and like you can connect with someone else who's first gen and you have each other, not out of dependency, but out of community.
Yeah.
It makes it easier to go through the experience and not develop mental I don't want like mental issues, right? Like it makes it that much easier. Now, does it um you know get rid of mental issues? Absolutely not, right? Like there it'll always linger, it'll always be there, right? If you have issues with confidence, you have anxiety, you have all those things. Learning how to manage it is the most important piece, right? I think a lot of people assume that, like, just like people assume I'm extroverted, people might assume I'm super confident, this, that, and the third. I was like, no, this was all reps. Like, that is the blessing and curse of, like, when I started this work, I was very anxious. Like, I'm a black man. Yeah, like, I'm a black man on a white campus, and I have to talk about diversity issues.
Yeah.
That's not easy. Yeah. Like, in most rooms where I go into, I'm the only black person, and I have to tell you why racial discrimination is a problem. That there's anxiety behind that, right? Yeah. I have to tell you why homophobia, misogyny is a problem, right? Or to address those things. So it's like there is a lot of anxiety and trepidation that comes with publicly speaking about those things, right? Now, I think like when I had that first year, I always thank God that I had like that year of virtual, because at least like I got my practice. I would write my little scripts on like the how to address the issues and whatnot, and what these topics even are, like explaining to people what identity is and all these different things, right? So yeah, I think like when we talk about how this work is connected to mental health, it is quite literally intertwined. A lot of people who have oppressed identities struggle with lots of mental illness, various types of mental illness, right? Depression, anxiety, all sorts, because society tells you that you are invaluable because of your skin color, because of your hair texture, because of your speech, the way you talk, where you're from. You have to take a lot of time to rewire how you see yourself in life, right? So that is quite literally directly tied to how we condition ourselves to think about ourselves and other people that come from similar experiences, right? So you might see people or students, or, well, not just students, but anyone dealing with like internalized racism, right? And thinking like, oh, growing up, people might have made fun of you because of your skin color, or the way your nose looked, or the way your lips looked, right? And dealing with that as an adolescent and even as a young adult, it still lingers in the back of your mind no matter where you go, what you do, right? So, and it's a weight. It's a mental weight, right? So there are so many different types of issues psychologically that discrimination, bias, all of these is create for people on a mental side, that person on an individual basis, and hopefully on a collective basis too, because my hope is that people have community to celebrate their uniqueness amongst each other, because it does help with the impact of self-perception or perception of your own culture, your community, and identity, right? So you start to see the value in that, right? You start to see the value in your natural hair. You start to see the value in being queer. You start to see the value in you're overcoming your disabilities and the challenges that come with society and whatnot, not considering people who have disabilities, right? So that is the kind of like, that is the importance of this, connected to how people from historically excluded backgrounds develop high levels of mental issues connected to their oppression, to be quite honest. So
absolutely. Yeah. My approach with my clients is always social justice oriented, and I always incorporate feminist approach and social justice approach to my practice, because so much of, like you mentioned, anxiety, depression, so many mental health issues are connected to societal issues, body image issues. I can go on, the list can go on. So because people really do internalize and blame themselves and have, that negative thought process in their head when really it's learned. And like approach I always take, like, is this your authentic self that's saying this to you, or is this learned thoughts and learned things that society has told you or a bully has told you, right? So
well, the beautiful thing about it is that, like, once you get not over it, but it's, I don't know, life, something, whatever, something, like you have some sort of revelation that society is wrong. Oh, it's the best thing on the planet, because you start to realize that the things that society said were a negative thing or a deficiency that you have is actually your gift. Like, it's the thing that will set you apart in the thing that allows you to be a success in your own right. So that's the irony of it all, is that you're the very thing that people said or think is your deficiency is actually your superpower, like your gift, that thing that you should lean into. So and that's what I educate students on, and how to become emotionally aware and intelligent on how to develop your own sense of selfhood and self-identity and confidence behind it, and joy, and like just being happy to be your authentic you. So
yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that's amazing.
What do you think the misconceptions of DEI work are, like, specifically within media?
Yes, the first and foremost, it is the fact that people think that DEI is equates to Black or conversation about race. That's quite literally the misconception, right? When the masses say DEI, they think, oh, we're going to be talking about Black people. And when you live in a country that is mostly anti-Black and or built on systemic racist principles, of course, people don't want to have those conversations, or those conversations are taboo or begin to be misdirected into something else, right? Another issue. Race has always been an issue for people to talk about in our country. It's never not been an issue, right? Like, we're in the beginning stages of having effective conversations about race in our country, right? There have not been effective conversations about race in our country ever. So I'm sorry to break it to folks, but we're at the ground level of it all, right? And in talking about racial differences in our country, we have to talk about the history that predates us all to address the core and the root issues. I think a lot of times we only address the symptoms of racism, and we don't talk about the core problems. And that is why these core problems and or symptoms keep showing up in different areas or in different ways in life, right? So there are disparities in healthcare for Black women, right? There are disparities in venture capital lending, right? Based on race. Like, these are facts. These are like these things are not mystical. It's not a mystical piece of propaganda that's being brought up. These are factual things that are studied, reviewed, and disseminated to the world, and researched, right? So, like, to say that these things don't exist is insane, right? So that's the first part, right? People misconstruing that DEI is only a race conversation, right? It's an ability conversation. It's a gender equity conversation. It is, I mean, I could go on for days. It's like diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging addresses the full scope of the human experience, which is extremely multi-layered and extremely, right? So it's not just what you see on the outside, it's these things that shape us on the inside as well, right? And I think that people have in their misconceptions they then you know, look for things to affirm and confirm their misconceptions about what they think DEI is about. And it doesn't help that media isn't adequately and accurately portraying the types of work that we do, or the kinds of work that we do. So, yeah, I think people just need to educate themselves, but clearly, you know, I don't know. I think the value of being like intellectual in our society in general is like being attacked in a way, because it's
Yeah.
like, what's wrong with being educated? I
Yeah.
never in my, it's just so weird to me that people think that it's wrong to be informed. Like,
Yeah.
Right.
if you're informed, if you're aware, you can make a decision based off of your, like, after you're aware of the information, right? Like, you can then make whatever the best decision is for you and your family. But to express willful ignorance, to
Mm-hmm.
not know, right? To not want to allow the history of racism to be taught in certain settings, particularly educational or academic settings, to not allow for you know, just the conversation to happen is as tyrannical as you can get, right? Like, it's like, why
Yeah.
wouldn't you want to position yourself to be aware, to be informed? And the one thing I tell people all the time is like, once you're informed about something, once you know something, once you, that's why like knowledge is so powerful. Like,
Mm-hmm.
once you know a piece of information, you can't unknow it. Like, you can't
Yeah.
take it out of your head, right? It doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
So I think that it's important that people self-educate, and um you know, find, like, I've revamped my like book selection this year of, you know, different literature that I want to read and become
Mm-hmm.
aware of, particularly pertaining to Black history, so that I have a better scope. And it's because Black history is not intentionally taught in our country in general. It never was. So I don't understand how,
Yeah.
you know, it was never adequately taught in our country to begin with. So them taking it out over these next 4 years isn't even going to make a difference, right? I had to self-educate when I got to college, believe it or not.
Yes.
Um, and yeah, I think there's so much power in knowledge, and not just in history and social issues, but in, like, from an economic perspective, from a civil perspective, like from a political perspective. Being fully aware allows for you to understand where you're going to put your energy and effort towards positively contributing and positively impacting our society. And
Mm-hmm.
I think some groups don't want people to be informed. I think they want them to be uneducated, and I think they want them to be not only uneducated or uninformed, but totally misinformed, like purposefully
Yeah.
giving them the wrong information to make a
Mm-hmm.
decision that benefit them instead of the individuals themselves, right? So
Yes.
it's and I know that there's a lot of trepidation right now after the results of the election and whatnot, but I urge people to, like, like, we've been here before.
Yeah.
We gonna be all right, like, truly.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that because, you know, if we continue to resist um uh people, policies, you know, legislation that takes our power away as people to be educated and to be fully informed, and we galvanize around that and continue to educate ourselves, like, they can't stop people who come together under the guise of supporting our society in that way.
Yeah.
So yeah, you know, I know that was very long-winded, and, you know, but
No.
I think that those are like the misconceptions of, like, DEI work, and how these things are all interconnected to policy and economics, and yeah, it's a very interesting conversation and a very interesting time to live through. Like, you know, Can't wait till I'm in my old age to talk about how we got through this. I'm like,
Right.
I keep telling
Mhm.
folks, no, you know, uh, political climate or scenario that if you've gotten this far and you're okay, there's no political climate or scenario you can't get through now.
Mhm.
Yes, I understand the fears, but the humans have always found a way in general, and people of oppressed experiences will find a way, right?
Yeah.
We will find. So
Yeah, exactly. And I agree with you. It's like certain groups of people want people to wear the ignorant colored lenses, right? And not see the truth and not see
yeah,
humanity and see a future and see change and accept that.
Mm-hmm.
Like they
yeah,
just want to wear those blinders. And then
sure.
there's other people who want to open up our minds and our eyes and to experience and to move forward and to be progressive. And
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
um, we all need to band together and lean on each other and create
yeah,
space for one another. I saw,
Yeah. If you
yeah.
if you like define in each word diversity, equity, inclusion, there just can't be any bad that comes from any of it.
that's a great point. One of my workshops that I do, whether it's consulting or here on campus, is talking to people about and I break down each term. Like, here's the definition of the
Yeah.
actual word, right? So, like, let's get rid of the colloquial societal thought process or thought of what we think DEI is versus what it actually is. And here's how you benefit from it as well. Here's how you are in the conversation as well. I think there's this misconception that
Mhm.
because in diversity work we primarily discuss historical inequities, that we don't want the voices of individuals who come from privileged experiences or positions of power to be in the space. It was like, that's not true. We need you in the space so you can understand the history that, again, predates us all, that impacts um maybe my lack and your advantages, right? And how are we going to level the playing field, right? And I think it comes down to a simple thing, as the simple um understanding that people feel as though if someone else who doesn't look like them or experience the world the way that they do gains some sort of like some sort of equitable standard or advantage, that they somehow lose power and you don't. I don't know how
Mhm.
else to put it. Don't, right? It just levels the playing field, right? Like working in higher ed, we see, so there's been discussions, so the affirmative action decision, right, for instance,
Yeah.
like that affects college admissions, right? And
Mhm.
now colleges can't admit students based on race. And now
Mhm.
now people are trying to address the whole legacy issue, right? It was like, okay, so if that's the case, then if I can't be admitted based on my race, you can't be admitted based on your family lineage, right? So it's like,
Mhm.
let's even the playing field and let's go by the
Yeah.
numbers. And I think the average person or average group is okay with that, right? Like, the reason why affirmative action was even put in place was to address historical systemic issues where people
Mhm.
were quite really, even though they excelled academically, were not allowed to come into certain institutions of higher education. So, like, we can't act like these things didn't exist and didn't happen, right? That's what's gotten us
Mhm.
here. When we avoid these conversations, when we avoid the discussion about inequities in our country, we are bound to either repeat them or allow them to persist in a different way, right? So it's so important to have these discussions, and it's so important to educate yourself, and more importantly, align with other people who are educated on these things, because sometimes once you get past a certain threshold, like, I'm not about to waste my time or your time trying to enlighten you if you're not prepared to listen and be
Mhm.
educated.
Yeah.
I mean, even in 2020, I had individuals reach out to me, and even after seeing the George Floyd murder, and they wanted to understand more about systemic racism, systemic inequities, this, that, and the third. And then 4 years later, I still see you being
Mhm.
pro XYZ. So it's like, I can't help
Mhm.
you if you're not willing to change, right? I can't help you
Mhm.
if you're not in a space, or your heart posture isn't ready to receive education on the historic wrongs that, for instance, Black people have faced, or Asian Americans have faced, or Indigenous people have faced, right? Like, I can't help you if you're not ready to learn and listen. So, but to that point, those that are already aware, enlightened, and educated, I urge you to find other people who are enlightened and educated to have community, one, again, so you know you're not crazy, because you're not. But more importantly, to work with those people to support, to support the larger cause of dismantling systemic barriers that exist, right? Like, because we've got to do it. We've got to come together in order to do it.
I find it interesting that when you're speaking to a certain group of people about this, you have to not dumb it down, but like put it in words
Gotta dilute it.
Yeah, and a standpoint that affects them specifically as individuals. And like that's the difference, is like certain groups of people only think of them as individuals, and then a lot of us are thinking of the majority of people. And I think that's the difference right there. And yeah, I was just this morning at therapy myself, and I was talking to my therapist about the election results, and she said something so interesting. She was like, yes, sometimes you have to go back to your toxic ex to realize you're not supposed to be with them. And that's what America is doing right now.
For sure. We certainly are. And I think again, I'm not fearful. I'm just ready for the challenge. I just think that everybody's got to, in some way, shape, or form, no matter who you are, what your identities are, your background, your culture, your community, just get your affairs in order so that you can be okay. God forbid things don't go as planned. But don't be fear, like, don't operate out of fear is my point at the end of the day. Operate out of hope and progression, so that we can begin to figure this thing out. I am more so, concerned for an entire generation of youth who, will be impacted by some of these policies. And I'm more concerned about looking at, I'm a millennial technically, I guess. And I look at Gen, I would hope that people understand the gravity and the severity of what this means for them, and come together to focus on a plan and focus on developing a cause or a why to make sure you're not left to be on the fringes of society, whether it be based off of any aspect of your identity or your socioeconomic status. Like, to your point, there's this. I think the word is, we had a keynote speaker come talk for our MLK Day celebration about 2 years ago, and he had already named it, and I was already feeling it societally, but now I feel it now more than ever. And you just basically mentioned it, Tyler. It is this thing called like radical individualism that is happening right now, where people are doing things that are self-serving, and they're not connecting themselves with the effects and the impacts and the consequences of how it is going to negatively affect the entire community. And when you think from that perspective, what you don't realize is that it'll end up at your front door at some point in time, right? It's going to end up affecting you, and it'll be too late at that point to reverse things. So that is my only hope for this generation, Gen Z particularly, and my generation too. I feel like there are a lot of people that are millennials too that are practicing this radical individualism instead of thinking about, on a communal level, on a societal level, how can we help everyone? Like, how can we help one another? And until we get back to that, it's going to be a free for all, and it's not going to be good. So
Yeah.
so my hope is that people start to realize that and uh become more enlightened and address that. So
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
absolutely. So, thinking about everything you've done, this full circle moment that you spoke about in the beginning of the recording, how you got here where you're sitting right now, what do you think you would say to freshmen in college at Sacred Heart, first day at Sacred Heart, Rob, now, if you could
oh, you can.
take off
Oh,
now?
I say it all the time. Oh, I'm happy you asked me that question. I It's funny. I don't know. Like, I'm very spiritual too. Like, I go to church every week. I'm a Christian. I'm into my Bible. I'm into the Word of God. That's just me. Whatever that looks like for someone else, I respect that. But for me, what works is Christianity and this journey I've been on. And it's so funny because God always he like just keeps revealing to me like stuff that I used to be concerned about or worried about that are now like it's in so far in the back of my mind. Like
Hmm.
like things I um I was even going through. So yeah, I would just say to that 18-year-old me, like even though I did this, like just keep persistent, like keep pushing. You are going to be totally fine. Um, and in the same way that I feel that now about this election, I
Hmm.
don't know how to put words, I don't know how to verbalize it, but like the hope that I felt then, even though I felt fear and uncertainty about college itself and like being whatever level of successful and not knowing what I was going to do for a living. I had no idea what I was going to like. I have that same hope today. Like it's just more refined and fortified because I now have a spiritual guide. Like I have a mapped out blueprint of what my spiritual life looks like, so I can be more in tune with
Hmm.
what that is. So yeah, that's what I would tell me. It's just like keep pressing forward, keep handle your business, do what you got to do, uh, be more confident. That's the only thing I would like actually suggest. Just be more confident because you
Mhm.
you are him. You're you. You know what I'm saying? Like you can do that. You're not
Yeah.
like it takes a lot of like you have to prove to yourself very often, but like you have to also affirm yourself and tell yourself that consistently, and then life will give you opportunities to prove it to yourself. So yeah, that's what I think. Yeah, I think that's what I would say. Just be more confident and be him. So.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, do you have any recommendations for anyone out there? Movies, TV shows, articles. I know you mentioned some podcasts, music,
Books.
books, yeah.
Books. Right now, I think so there is a book called Stamped from the Beginning, uh, which is a book by Dr. Ibrahim Kendi. I
Mm.
believe he's a assistant professor or full-time professor, excuse me, at I believe at Harvard, maybe. I can't remember, somewhere in Massachusetts. He's very well known. I urge people who don't understand the history of systemic racism or systemic inequities in our country, just generally, to if they want to understand and know that history, to start reading that book. I began reading it a couple weeks ago, and it's helped me understand where just the root of racist ideology stems from, and how it continues to persist in our society today. So it's important to understand that history so that like, okay, where did it begin? um you know why was it made okay to hold another person as property, right? Like why, or you know what I mean, or why was it okay for uh for men to consider women as property as well, right? So it's
Mhm.
important to learn that. So Stamped from the Beginning is a very good book to start. Of course, Secret to Success podcast, Earn Your Leisure. What else is there? trying to think what else. I This is gonna sound very cliche. Of the Bible, get some scriptures in. Like all religion aside, if you actually read the Bible, it got some heat in there. You know what I'm saying? Like if you actually like, because I'm not a religious person, I'm a spiritual person, but like I'm able to talk about character and integrity is because I'm these scriptures are giving me a blueprint. So if for you, if that's the Quran or if it's the Torah, if it got some heat in there, come show me,
Yeah.
see it. Because it helps me like with my guiding principles from like a character perspective. So yeah, those few things, like I think what's quality over quantity. You start with a few small things and really apply them versus like hoarding information, and then you'll be good. Like, I think those things are my recommendation. So
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate y'all, ladies. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me on the pod. If you ever need anything else, don't hesitate to reach out, and I'll be promoting and marketing out to the world and my end to get action. So I appreciate y'all inviting me on.
Thank you. Do you want to plug your social media, your podcast?
Sure.
Plug all your things.
So you can follow _multicultural center _ and through that we have a link tree that'll take you to our podcast, our other media platforms. You can also follow me on LinkedIn. I'm always posting on LinkedIn stuff from our Instagram. I'll post it on LinkedIn, or I do DEI consulting, so I post a lot of that stuff as well. What else is there? I'm trying to think. Yeah, For the Culture podcast, that's the name of our podcast. Trying to think what other media. That's really it. I do social media, like I'm on it, but like I don't do too much promo and stuff like that. You can't follow my personal Instagram. Only Tyler and Maggie can. Y'all good? I'm good. But yeah, I mean, that's basically it. The Multicultural Center Instagram is a great way to see the stuff that we're doing on a daily and weekly basis. We acknowledge all heritage months and whatnot, different cultural celebrations. And of course, I always, I like I said, in doing consulting, I always have the opportunity to educate people about these topics like more intentionally. So if you ever wanted to reach out to me to have a discussion about any one of these topics, whether they be DEI related, cultural competency related, anything regarding diversity education, I'm very open to that. So my website is rsjinclusion.com. So yeah, those are my handles. Those are the ways people can connect with me, and yeah, that's basically it. So
thanks, Rob. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ladies. I appreciate it. Enjoy your weekend. Stay safe. Stay warm. It's getting cold up. And yeah, if you need anything, don't hesitate to reach out. All right.
Welcome to Maggie's Media Munchies, where I give you a piece of media to pair with a piece of food or bev. So for my first media munchie that I'm giving you, this is a film that really put A24 on the map. It's called Ex Machina. It's about AI. It's about the control of computers and government. I just thought it was kind of relevant, and it's a really great film. It's really, really interesting. I think it's really well executed. And I would say sit down with some fun people in your life and have some za, watch Ex Machina. Also, it's just great to watch like A24 when it really started like as a low budget sort of film company, and there was only like, these like big like Warner Bros and this and that. I think it's a really, really great film and can really reflect on our world right now. So I think it's great to watch with a group. I think it's great to watch with friends. You could watch it by yourself. That's great too. But yeah, get a za and eat up while you watch some AI take over the world. And then my next media munchie is listen to some of the Beatles. I think a lot of their music can also be really relevant to today, like Come Together, Yesterday. I think Imagine. I think all those Revolution. I think there's so many. It's just crazy because they're so old now. Like the music is so old that it's crazy how much it's resonating to society today, and really in a beautiful way. And like honestly, lyrically, you know, you would think listening to those songs and musics, like we would never have to experience like the injustices that we do, but we just still are fighting that fight. So definitely listen to that. And I would say pair it right now with a bottle of Pinot Grigio or Chardonnay.
Yeah.
Any white that's gonna get you, you know, really feeling the songs. I think you could really listen to those lyrics when you're in the bottle of Pinot Grigio. But also though, for any non-alcoholic options, there's some really great like fun mocktails that you can make, like a little like apple mocktail, like crispy, like something that's just gonna, you know, make you
Sparkling apple cider.
I think it's perfect for this time of year. Like something that's just gonna make your mouth go and think about the world. So yeah, those are my 2 media munchies. Eat up, drink up, enjoy, and have fun, but also cry it out.
Yes, love it. Welcome to Tyler's Take Care of Yourself tip, where I give you a tip to take care of yourself. So this is something Rob touched upon a little bit. He discussed, you know, how spirituality is such an important part of his life and his character, and how it brought him to, you know, who he is today. So my take care of yourself tip is to tap into your spirituality in whatever way that looks for you and feels safe for you. So whether that's reading scripture, reading the Bible, you know, meditation, manifesting, anything that has to do with the universe, reading the Quran, reading, whatever spiritual practice best serves you, to tap into that right now. Going out in nature is very spiritual. So any like grounding things in nature could be really useful. And yeah, spirituality is like, when I look at like what wellness is, spirituality is a part of that, as a part of becoming well. So it's definitely important to practice spirituality, and again, whatever way feels safe for you and best fits you.
So it's amazing.
That's
that.
Take care of yourself.
Take care of yourself. Well, this was a great episode. Please like and subscribe. Follow us on Instagram at Act and Analyze Podcast, and do the same on YouTube
and TikTok.
Please comment and share, and just give us some love. We're giving you guys some love. So yeah. All right. We will see you guys next week.
Bye.